I'm going to talk for a little while about some bare metal specifics, where we've focused some effort over the last 6 months. And then we'll pause to take some questions from the room, maybe. I hope you can see from that previous presentation that we have this fantastic capability now based on open source tools. No license fee tools in that tool chain you just saw there. All that capability to deploy and manage your Moduloop instances. So, okay, the on-premise workstream kicked off 4 months ago. Let me just find the slide dongle thing. Okay, so historically, most of the Moduloop software development effort has happened in public cloud. It's cheap, it's convenient, but increasingly, it's become obvious to us over the years that most of our adopters and potential adopters need to run Moduloop in private data centers. So we focused our efforts on thinking about the problems that might exist in those slightly different environments and how we can provide tools and support and expertise to help those deployments be successful. So we have done a considerable amount of work, as I think you'll see, to target private data centers, bare metal, as David was saying, but also I do want to shout out that there are tests ongoing running on virtualization layers, such as Hyper-V from Microsoft and VMware as well. Those efforts are ongoing, and we're always looking for members in the community to come and help us, join in, learn about what we're doing, and help. But our objectives really are to make the process of deploying and maintaining a Moduloop switch in these private data centers reliable, quick, easy, and cheap. We realize that there is a need to enable adopters of Moduloop technology to start small with minimal capital outlay. But also, we hope that Moduloops grow to be very busy platforms. That's our end goal. So we need to have ways of adding scale capacity that don't cost the earth. We need to be able to add small chunks of capacity by scaling horizontally. We don't want to have to buy more expensive servers. We want to buy more of the same type of servers. So we're targeting technology that allows us to do that. Again, I've already mentioned, but I'll say again, none of the tools in the tool chains that you'll see have any license fee associated with them. You can use this stuff for free. Some people will say there's no such thing as a free lunch. And with open source, you pay for it in different ways. Mostly getting involved, owning the code yourself is part of that process. We do realize that Moduloop needs to be carrier grade. Some of you might have heard that term before, carrier grade. You may have heard the term enterprise grade, meaning a well-tried and tested, robust, resilient piece of software or technology. Carrier grade is the next level up. That's what your tier 1 people look for in their technology. It has to be exceptionally reliable. It has to be 5 nines of availability. So those are the kind of levels we're targeting with the Moduloop technology. We also realize that we're not starting from scratch in many places. Many of the hub operators, switch operators around the world right now, they have technology platforms, they have infrastructure, they have server rooms. And we realize that we may need to run on repurposed existing infrastructure, or we may need to support patterns that adopters are familiar with and like and love. They have in-house skills to support. So we want to do our best to be flexible with Moduloop software so it can install and run successfully with all the great characteristics that we expect in those environments. So over the last PI, in PI 22, we produced some documentation to recommend what hardware you might need to run Moduloops on. That's being iterated all the time as we're learning more from our adopters. But again, our target is start small and add cheap units of scale approach. So far, we've done some work with secure operating system layers based on the Kairos immutable Linux. Immutable operating systems are a relatively recent development in the world. The open source Kairos platform is one that we've targeted so far. That's not to say we won't look at others in the future, but it's relatively stable. Considering it's such a new technology, Kairos is one of the more stable. We're running a lot of tests at the moment. We have successfully built K3s, which some of you in the room might not know, is a particular packaging of Kubernetes that's especially efficient and lightweight and easy to manage. So we're targeting high availability Kubernetes clusters based on that technology, running on bare metal, either virtualized. So we've actually successfully bootstrapped Moduloop on Hyper-V virtualized on top of bare metal and VMware. Those tests have initially been targeting the preferred hardware profile of our friends in Rwanda, who we're supporting imminently with their project. So we wanted to make sure everything was good for them. We've been writing a lot of documentation during this process. So, the need to learn and bring in external expertise is less. So there is a volume of self-serve installation documentation being worked on. Previously, the Moduloop documentation had made some assumptions about your starting environment. We've gone a step further back than that in this previous PI, and we've said, well, okay, what if you're just unboxing your servers? What do you need to do? So we've started building documentation at that level, and we're hoping that during the upcoming projects, we'll refine and expand that documentation as necessary. Now, my apologies to David. I've duplicated some points from his slide that I thought were important to the bare metal world as well. The addition of micro K8s, which is a very small, even smaller and lighter weight version of Kubernetes as a second option. And I don't think I can overstate the importance of the move to Istio as an API gateway technology. That's unblocked an awful lot of performance and maintenance ease. Again, security, #1 importance to us. Keycloak is a very, very solid, well-tried and tested open source technology. And the integration of Istio with Keycloak, thanks to David, has unlocked a whole new era, I think, of ease of use of the access control and security layers around Moduloop. We saw yesterday a presentation from a team who'd been working on performance optimization and characterization for Moduloop. One of the tools those guys used is called K6. We think it's important to be able to test your environments whenever you need to understand how they're performing. So another one of the fantastic additions, thanks to David, to the IAC, this PI, is the ability to deploy the resources needed to run those performance tests in the IAC and GitOps process. So you can now, when you deploy a Moduloop, you can deploy everything you need to run performance tests at the same time. So one highlight of the PI for me has been a community member, Infotex, providing their Moduloop bare metal test track to the community to develop and test these processes. So far, they've run Moduloop deployments on top of hypervisor. VMware, I think, is the current platform that they've targeted. And they're running performance tests. I won't steal any of their thunder in announcing any performance numbers, but they're very encouraging. And this is really helping us understand how the Moduloop software runs differently on servers in our own racks rather than public cloud, where there's always some layers in between your virtual machine and the hardware, throttling I/O, for example, and CPU that are not necessarily visible to you. So these tests, I think, will actually end up telling us a bit more about the performance characteristics of the various Moduloop software components than we knew before. That testing is reusing all the performance tests that were built as part of that other work stream. So this is a good example of how the work streams can feed each other with capability and unlock even greater things. So for the first time in public, I think I'm showing a picture of an actual Moduloop rack in the wild. Somebody may have done this before. I apologize if that's the case, but this is the first one I've ever seen. So this is the Moduloop test rack where these tests are running at the moment. Yeah, thank you. I think that does deserve a clap. It's a milestone, I think. Yeah, look at all those flashing lights. I love flashing lights. So next steps for us in this work stream, Helm charts. So the way the software layer, Moduloop in particular, is deployed into Kubernetes is using the Helm tool. And the charts, the deployment manifests, up to now, they've been working just fine in the cloud, but we want to be able to have a slightly finer grain control over how the workloads are spread onto the physical resources. So we're doing some refactorings and rethinkings about maybe some of the structures of those charts to allow us to segregate the workloads for on-premise production type scenario. We're going to keep running those performance tests because they're telling us an awful lot more, I think, than we knew before. We're going to keep iterating the documentation. But a really high priority for this work stream right now is to support the upcoming deployment in Rwanda, that project. So our resources are at your beck and call. Please reach out if you're interested in any of the on-prem related issues. If you have questions, you want to take part, get involved. If you're interested in Moduloop and how to deploy it and how it's going to be to operate, then come and join the work stream. You can find me on Slack or on email. So, Simeon, I think we were going to take some questions. Do we have time?
Yeah, maybe just one question, a burning question for either of the two presentations, IAC or the on-prem workstream update. I don't see a hand. Where?
Sam.
Oh. Okay, you need.
Thanks for the session. So James, we have some, and David, we have some questions from community members who are asking, or this is the question: what if we want to deploy Moduloop on, let's say, Oracle Cloud or Google Cloud right now? So will you be able to help with that?
Let me just replay that to you to make sure I understood the question. They're asking, they're saying, I want to deploy an Oracle Cloud or Google Cloud right now. How can I do that?
Moduloop deploy.
Yeah,
Moduloop.
okay, well, I think I'll try to summarize, but David, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you take the existing Terraform template for deploying into a cloud environment, you copy paste and you make the changes to target the Oracle or Google Cloud Terraform modules.
So I know that there's some interest in the community on the OCI side. So I think there's probably a good chance for the community members to talk amongst each other. But the overall idea is to create a module, and I don't think I can go into which module on stage, but fairly simple to point out what needs to be duplicated for the cloud provider. Same GCP.
Maybe I can check with Steve. Are we allowed to talk about the support we're receiving? No one's here from me, but I can say their name, yeah? Okay, so Oracle have graciously donated a team of engineers to build a module for us to deploy into Oracle Cloud. We're expecting to announce pretty soon the first successful deployment into Oracle Cloud.